Hi, this is actually kind of a long video that I made production planning for Business 4970 Capstone course. I recorded the lecture in one of the lectures, and unfortunately one of the cameras I had set up wasn't recording properly, so I don't have very good images of some of the lecture. I'll try to paste in some other slides to augment the lecture. The audio's okay, so you can hear me talking, but sometimes you can't see what I'm pointing at, and so you'll have to just make do with the information as best you can. So the sales forecasting production planning, it was developed by Dr. Lay, and this is my presentation of his lecture. There's three things that we're going to consider when you're forecasting. One is the historical data, what happened in the past. We're also going to consider how much people are charging for the product that they're selling. There's 5 or 6 companies in each world, and each company sets their own price. So we're going to look at how much the price is going to affect the forecast. And we're going to look at how much your customers have the ability and the desire to purchase products. So if your price goes up, would your sales go up or down? Down, right? So let me get rid of this for a second. It's kind of in the way. What if I just look at these numbers here? This is my history, and in red is my future. What do you think my next quarter sales are going to be, just based on the history?
Downward.
Downward? Like what? Tell me a number.
70.
I heard 70, 75, somewhere around there, right? So how did you do that?
Based on the trends.
The trends, so you just looked at what was going on? What if we averaged all that? Could you do that and come up with a number? You could. Maybe it's not as accurate. Maybe you just want to draw a line and say, okay, it's kind of going like that. And based on my history, it's going to be, say, around there somewhere. So that's looking only at historical information, what happened in the past. Now, what if my price goes up? So I picked this number. Let's say it's let's say it's 80, just based on the past. If the price goes up, what's going to happen to the forecast? Should go down. So maybe it should be like around here somewhere. What if my customer's ability to buy or the desire to buy goes up? Will my sales go up or go down? Up. So maybe here somewhere. So we're going to talk about how forecast is correlated to different variables. Correlation means how it's related, how it's tied to it. The forecast should be positively correlated to time. So as time goes on, it should be going in that same direction. Does that make sense?
So the forecast should be correlated to time?
To time.
Positively.
Positively. What about to price? What's my correlation? Positive or negative?
As the price goes up, sales go down.
So it's negatively correlated. And what we're going to use in the game, because we need a measure for our customers' desire and ability to buy, we need a measure. Does anyone know of a measure we might use?
Return on investment?
No.
Regression.
Regression? Well, we're going to use regression, but not yet. So we're going to use gross domestic product, GDP. And is that positive or negative correlated? Positive. So these concepts become really important when we get into the Excel spreadsheet that I'm going to show you right away. We need to, when we're doing our forecast, make sure our forecast is positively correlated to time, positively correlated to GDP, and negatively correlated to price. Because if we put our price up, we won't expect sales to go up, right? We expect them to go down. So that's what we're going to do in forecasting tonight. Okay, we're going to come back to those concepts pretty soon. I need to tell you about some other stuff. First of all, I'm going to show you a Excel spreadsheet that you're going to download and you're going to use it. And everyone's going to be familiar with it before you go home tonight. So it might be a long night for all of us. This just tells a little bit about the spreadsheet. That's Dr. Lai's website, which is also on Moodle. The whole purpose to what we're doing tonight is you guys need to make a game decision on Monday, right? Monday, 1 o'clock is your first decision.
Thursday. Moodle says Thursday, September 6th.
For the first decision?
1 p.m.
Ooh, we need to double check that. I thought it was Monday.
Monday's a holiday.
Oh, Monday's a holiday. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Okay, so you got a couple extra days. I told the other class Monday, they didn't say a thing. They're all going to be here going, where is everybody? Okay, Thursday. So I think this is the old version of the interface, but the new interface looks basically the same. I think it's not yellow anymore, it's just white. And one of the big things you're going to be deciding is down here in production schedule, every factory right now has 6 lines built in, right? And basically you can work 40 hours or you can work 44 hours or you can work 48 hours. So you can work some overtime, but you can't do a whole lot of other stuff for adjusting your production output. Now your factory doesn't have some kind of magic dial where you dial it to change the production output. The only thing you do is you change the hours that your people are working, and based on that, they'll produce more or less product. So everything we're doing tonight is to help you figure out what to do in your production schedule next week, and whether or not you want to add lines, make an expansion, or build a new plant. So those are decisions you have to start making, and you need a tool to make those decisions. And that's what we're talking about tonight. Okay, there's some reports that you can get from the player's website, and these are going to be important for you for entering the information on the spreadsheet. So it's reports J, D, and F that you need to be concerned about for this. Now, a bit of caution, the game manual has sample reports of these reports. That's not the information you want to use. So the manual is just examples. The information is close, but it's not right. You have to use the information that you get from the website. There's seasonal factors that come into play, and it's actually built into the spreadsheet, so we don't need to worry about that too much right now. Okay, what we're doing is we're going to use a statistical calculation called regression to calculate our forecasts. And we're going to use 3 variables to work as our predictors. So we want to calculate sales, seasonally adjusted sales. That's these numbers. Those are our sales. And we want to come up with that forecast. We're going to incorporate real GDP. That's our customers' desire and ability to buy things. We're going to incorporate the average price. And of course, we're going to build time in it, or the history of our information. When we build the forecast, you're going to try 4 different models. These are statistical models, not the models that you're selling in the game, but you're going to test 4 statistical models. It looks a little bit complicated, but when I show you how to do it in Excel, it's actually quite straightforward. But a little bit of theory on it. The 4 models we're going to test are, we're going to combine real GDP and average price. We're going to look at only time, like we did at the very beginning to come up with this number, this 80. We're going to look at time plus real GDP, and we're going to look at all 3, time, GDP, and average price. So we're going to test a few different ways of doing the forecast, and whichever forecast gives us the best results, that's what we're going to use. Hopefully that's the most accurate. Okay, the spreadsheet is intimidating at first, but it's fairly straightforward, but there's a couple of cautions about it. One is there's a couple of small details that you need to make sure you update every decision, or it's going to mess up your results, and I'll tell you that soon. And the other is it's possible to corrupt this spreadsheet and mess up the formulas that are built into it. So you have to be careful when you're using it. And I suggest you make a copy each time so you're starting with a fresh copy. And that also helps you to go back a couple weeks and see what you did in the past. And maybe you made more accurate decisions in the past and now your decisions are not as accurate. You want to go back and see what you're doing and compare so you can improve your results. So make lots of copies of this, and if it gets corrupted, start with a fresh version and build it from scratch. Okay, it's got several tabs along the bottom, and the first one is historical data. What you have to do, and you only have to do it one time, you have to get the reports from the game website, and you're responsible for everything that's in yellow. If it's not in yellow, it's not an entry point for you. So you have to go and enter your GDP, your consumer price index, and your prices that products have been selling for to give the spreadsheet some historical information. So what you're doing is you're telling the spreadsheet what these numbers actually were for your team. It has numbers in it already that are pretty close, but they're not right. They're just sample numbers. So you have to make sure you update that. Don't do it from the manual. Do it from the reports that you get from the game website. Then you have accurate information. Good so far? Yeah.
Just to make sure the numbers that we're getting, that's the one it runs the first 2 years for us, correct?
Yeah. So the system already ran 2 years, and you have 2 years of data. So you have to go in your website, the game website, and find out what these numbers were and enter them in so that the spreadsheet has accurate information to begin with. So that part's pretty easy. Just make sure you do it correctly and take your time. Make sure you enter the right information. Now notice on this spreadsheet, it's a little hard to see here, but you can probably see better on your computer. It has a lot of instruction points built into it. So it's kind of like a built-in manual that way. And if you see these little red triangles in some of the cells, if you just put your mouse over top of that, don't click on it, just put your mouse over it, it'll pop up a little instruction block for that part. So you have to spend some time and just kind of browse through the spreadsheet and see what all these instructions are telling you to do. So it really helps you to know what's going on, to follow these little instructions. The other thing you should do is open up this PDF. It's called Lecture Notes on Forecasting. This tells you step by step how to use the spreadsheet. So you should partner up, one person with a PDF, one person with a spreadsheet, and go through each step. And if it's not working, go back to this PDF and see what you missed. It's really quite accurate. It's been revised several times over the years, and they've got it pretty good. So follow through on this report, or not report, this instruction sheet. And it's telling you similar information to the PowerPoint that I'm showing to go find these reports. It tells you, see page 230 of the manual, but that's not the information you're going to use, right? That's just an example. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is update all this information. That's a one-time deal. Take your time and try and do it accurately. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to forecast for region 1 or M1. Notice at the bottom there's 4 tabs, M1, 2, 3, and 4. So you have to do your forecast for each of the regions. Each one's going to be a little bit different. Again, the yellow is what you're responsible for entering. The purple is instructions, and the gold color is just more information. So there's a lot going on this spreadsheet, but you don't have to do a whole lot of different stuff on it. Most of this is locked so that you can't change it. Like if I try to delete that, well, it let me. So not all of it's locked. So that's why I said you got to be careful. There's other parts on it where it's locked up, but this particular sheet, it's not locked. So be careful with it. So I'll just do an undo. Okay, this is where we're going to use regression. And who's familiar with regression? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who's heard of it, but they don't want to even think about it? Half the people. Who's never even heard of it? So everyone's heard of it, right? Okay, so don't be intimidated by it. This, like I said, the spreadsheet looks kind of intimidating. And when I say the word regression, most people go, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't have space in my brain right now for that because there's too much other stuff going on." But fortunately, it's not that bad, and we're only going to use like a small part of regression. So it's more following the steps than really learning it or relearning it. So don't get too worried about it. The first thing you have to do is you have to prepare Excel to use regression. And if you've never used regression on your computer before, you probably don't have your computer set up to do it. So to check, you go to Data, and apparently I've never used it on this. And my computer's not set up for it because there should be an Analysis tab over here somewhere, and it's not showing. So I have to set up my computer. It's really easy. And there's a PDF instruction for how to do it on Dr. Lay's website. So the way you do it, and I apologize to Apple users, but it's a little bit different on Apple. And I don't know how to do Apple because I only use Windows. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research on YouTube to find instructions for how to do that. It's not difficult, but I just don't know how to do it because I don't speak Apple. So for Windows, you go to File, Options, Add-ins. At the bottom, you select Excel add-ins, click on Go. And I want this first one, the Analysis Tool Pack.
For the Macs, you do the same thing but go down to the tools.
It's in a little bit different place.
It's in tools and stuff.
So it's a little bit different on Mac, and we have a Mac expert over there that can, for a small fee, tutor anyone that needs it. So notice now when I go to my data tab, over here on the right, I have an option for data analysis. So that's all it takes to set up your version of Excel to do this. And you only have to do it one time. I think I did a restore on this laptop about 6 months ago, and I just never used it since then, so that's why I had to add it in. Once you've done it, that's it. Don't worry about it again. There's a PDF on Dr. Lai's website for how to do it. There's an expert on how to do it on Mac, so shouldn't be a big deal. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to do regression analysis. We're going to test 4 models. These 4 models using regression, and we're going to pick the one that gives us the best results. And again, it sounds a little bit complicated, but it's actually really easy to do. And once you've done this for a while, you're going to be really super fast at this. So I'm here in M1, and I have 8 quarters of data, historical data, and it picked that up from when I updated on the historical tab, it updated on these other tabs to give me the correct information. So this, as far as my company, is up to date because I'm not using real information. You guys have to use real information. It gives me the 8 quarters of industry sales. These are the seasonally adjusted sales. And notice it's got a Y there because Y is what we're trying to predict. Then it has time, which is just 1 through 8 quarters. It has real GDP and it has average price. So those are the 3 possible inputs to our prediction model. Now what I'm going to do is go to Data, Data Analysis, and it brings up a little pop-up window. And the Data Analysis tool pack has a lot of different tools in it. We only care about regression. So I go down and find regression and click OK. And it brings up this window. So it wants to know my Y input range, what I'm trying to predict. And it wants to know my X input range. What are the variables I'm using to make my prediction? So here's my Y, and these are my X's. So for Y input, I'm going to select all of this column. And notice I selected the title, the SA sales, because in my results I want to keep those titles. And now I'm going to select some inputs, some X inputs. So I'm going to take, this is kind of in my way. I'm going to take all 3 of them the first time. So my X inputs are my time, my real GDP, and my average price. If I go back to the PowerPoint, I'm doing this model number 4. I'm trying to predict my sales, and I'm using for variables time, GDP, and price. So here's where there's a couple details that can trip you up. Because I want my titles here, I have to tell Excel that I'm using labels. So I have to click on that box. If I don't, it's going to try to use the text in the calculation. It's going to not give proper results. So I have to click that. And generally, you have to update this each time you open Excel. You have to retell it what's going on. So make sure each time that you remember to do that. Then I need to tell Excel where to give me the output. Excel does the regression calculation in the background, and then it gives you the results. So for my output range, I want that to go right here where it says summary output. And that is L2. Notice how I clicked up there where it says summary? When I did that, it updated this to L2. The reason that this is important is Excel is using these outputs to make your forecast calculations. So it does a calculation, it puts the numbers into the spreadsheet, and then Excel goes and reads those numbers and makes other calculations. If you put it in the wrong place, it's going to look at the wrong numbers and you're going to get a bad forecast. So it says it's going to overwrite, gives me a warning, and that's because it's going to replace all this information here when I click OK. So watch what it does. So it ran regression and it gave me the output where it's all grayed in here. Now the thing about this output is this is just raw data. There's no formulas built in here. So if I click on one of these, notice it's 11.48, whatever that number is. It's just a number. If I go and type something in there, then I've messed up my results. So you have to be careful that you don't mess this up once you run it. Okay, now I need to decide if I have a valid forecast model and if it's a good model. You don't need to worry about all these numbers. That regression output can be used for other purposes, but we're not using it for that. All we want to do is we want to check the signs. Is it positively correlated to time, negatively correlated to price, and positively correlated to GDP? So if we built a model that is positively correlated to time, to price, then that's telling us that the more we put our prices up, the more we're going to sell. And that's not a valid model, right? So to do that, down here are our variables. And that's why I wanted the labels when I ran regression, so that it would tell me what these are. So time, I've got a negative coefficient. All I care about from all of this is the sign on the first numbers in the coefficient. So time is negatively correlated. Is that correct? No. It's not a valid model. Real GDP is positively correlated. Is that correct?
Yes.
And average price is negative. That's correct. But time is not correct, so this is not a valid model. The other thing I'm going to look at, if it was a valid model, is I want to look at my R-squared result, right up here. And this says 0.82. And what that means, it's kind of like a measure of accuracy. It means that for the thing I'm trying to predict, my model was able to make that prediction 82% of the time. So it's kind of like 82% accurate. That's a good way to think of it. But it's not a valid model, so I can't use it. So I'm going to go back to regression. And I'm just going to do time this time. I don't have to update where my output is. It kept that for me. It knows that I want labels. So all I had to do was change my X, and I can run it again. This is why you're going to get really good at this, because you're going to run this thing over and over and over. Now what do I have? Time is positive. That's what I want, right? So I've got a valid model. And what's my R-squared? I've got 66.66.
So it's lower than the other model.
Well, the other model wasn't valid, so
Oh, okay.
so far this is my only contender. So remember that 66 value. Let's do it again. This time I'll do time and GDP together. What did I get?
Time is positive, GDP is positive.
So those are both positive. That's what I want. So I have a valid model.
And the R-square is higher.
And I've got 69.69 instead of 0.66. So I've got a little bit better model. So that's good, right? I'm a little more accurate in my forecast. I've got one more to try. This time, let me go back to the PowerPoint. So we did this. It was not a valid model. We did time only. It was valid, gave us 0.66. We did time and GDP, gave us 0.69. Now I'm going to try this model 1, just GDP and price. What did I get? Price is negative. Is that what I want?
Yes.
GDP is positive. So I've got a valid model. My R squared is 0.82. What was the last one? 0.69. So this is the best model. So it's kind of like saying that it's 82% accurate. It's not really, but that's an easy way to think of it. So I ran 4 different regression models, and I picked, out of the valid models, I picked the best one.
How did you know what you wanted?
Hmm?
How did you know what you wanted?
How did it know?
How did you know what you wanted? Like if this came up in a test but differently, how do I know what to choose or how to do this?
So you have to consider whether your predictors should be negatively or positively correlated. So maybe I've got the, okay, let's say I sell bathing suits for a living. And I use temperature as one of my predictors. So temperature and bathing suit sales, should that be positive or negative correlated?
Positive,
Positive. What about rainfall?
negative.
Probably negative, right? So I could use any variables that I can come up with, and I have to first think about, okay, should this positively influence my sales or should it negatively influence my sales? Run my regression models with any combinations I want, check to see if I get valid outputs, and then check to see what level of R square I get. So for this exercise, we're keeping it very simple. Do you agree this is simple?
Yes.
Some people say that's not simple. You're hurting my brain here. So we only look at time, price, and the customer's ability and willingness to buy our product. We keep it very simple. We don't look at political activities. We don't look at the weather. We don't look at the region where we're located. We just keep it really simple. Use just a couple variables.